We're good? Okay, is everybody back? I can't see everybody. I can see Jennifer and John.
I'm here, Merrill.
Okay, Brian, Murray, Tamara,
I'm good, yeah.
Tamara. Okay, but she's there. Okay, let's get going again then. 9.5 recreation areas COVID opening relaunch strategy.
Very good. So this is let me click forward. So this agenda item, been working on in significant coordination with our Director of Ag Services, who ultimately takes care of the specifically the MD Park and has some responsibility and oversight over some of the other campgrounds within the campgrounds and recreation areas within the MD. And I guess with this Alberta relaunch and phased reopening, we're looking at the same question with regard to some of our recreation areas. From a public perspective, we are fielding a significant amount of inquiries along these lines. It wouldn't surprise me if councillors are as well. That being said, we've put together some proposed phase-in approach for discussion if it so be council's desire to see some sort of opening with regard to the MD Park as well as other recreation areas that the MD has oversight and responsibility for. So other than that, I'll pass the torch to Jason and he can provide some initial comment as well, and then we can have a discussion.
All right, thanks, Arliss. Yes, as we worked on this last week, the calls were coming in thick and steady about open and fishing day at the Forks was on Friday, and everybody wanted in there. And I won't just say Southern Alberta; I will say Western Canada wanted in there, along with our outdoor facilities, our recreation areas. As the weather gets nicer, the pressure gets more and more. So we're presenting this to you as councils. I hope that we can have some good conversation on this. I would have never thought 2 months ago that it would have been this tough to reopen our facilities, but it is pretty tough because every time you do something, then we're tied to another liability or some laws or policies somewhere in between us and the province. So it is a pretty tough job to get everything open and try and stay as legal as possible. Province. So our proposed stage number one, we have broke down all these places. If you notice, about every place that we have for outdoor recreation is listed here. That way it tries to take out a lot of the gray area that people seem to be finding ways to skirt around. So starting off with our proposed stage one for the municipal campground and the day use area. All this is there. We've just set dates. We have no rhyme or reason other than May 19th is after the May long weekend. Trying to deal with groups on May long weekend is nowhere close to the province's guidelines, so we thought it'd just be easiest to start after the long weekend.
There is a little bit of rhyme and reason behind at least the second dates with regard to the stage two, and that is quite simply because the province indicated that select campgrounds will be open June 1st, so we suggested perhaps we open shortly after, and we could maybe take advantage of some lessons learned or information that comes to light within those few days for June 8th.
So a number of things that are listed here that you're looking at. were guidelines or recommendations by the province. So when we have water taps closed or RV trailers with bathroom facilities, that's all guidelines by the province, so.
So I have a couple questions. So the first one I asked in shared notes, and Arlos provided the answer, so I'm sure people maybe have read that. And then my other question was, how are we going to regulate it? Is it the camp host? Will the CPOs, will we just look on good measure of people? I just wonder on the cost and the precautions, what we have to do.
So Jason, I'll take a first.
That,
Oh, go ahead.
You
Go
bet.
ahead, Jason.
In relations to that, and Arliss and I met with our two local law enforcement agencies last week over a conference call, and they're both willing to help us. But that being said, they also have their day-to-day duties that they still are responsible for, and so our park hosts, our park managers, the director of ag services, none of us are law enforcement. So to deal with that, we don't have the ability to deal with large groups gathered in our day use area or in any of our recreational areas.
The other aspect that would be considered is, from a due diligence perspective, Councillor Mianega, would be heavy signage outlining what the expectations and rules for use of the campground are. So while that's not outright overt enforcement, it's I guess risk management in terms of making people aware of what's required for that facility to be open and remain open. So yes, there would be, and Jason can speak to that as well, but there would be, it would be planned to have a significant amount of signage created for those areas that are very susceptible to mass gatherings, and not just mass gatherings, but what the rules are with regard to social distancing, camping rules as you see specifically in this RFD, as well as anything else that the province is requiring. So there would be that kind of messaging campaign through signage, enforcement as needed if available, to be quite candid, from our local law enforcement agencies, being the CPO group and RCMP. And from a staffing perspective, from the park host perspective, they will not receive direction from us to put themselves at any sort of risk in terms of mass gatherings or social distancing scenarios.
So my question would come around those who wish not to comply with the rules. How do we deal with them? And is the park host or the park manager going to be the one that spaces the campers out like every other camp spot, or how is that going to be dealt with?
Operationally, and Jason can speak to this in more detail, operationally the park hosts will be required to make sure that these standards, at least from our end, are being put in place to be met with regard to those that contravene those rules and any sort of public health orders that the province has in place. It becomes an enforcement issue. And the enforcement issue is essentially dealt with through the enforcement agencies if we have available capacity. So that definitely is, and it's already been discussed, that definitely is a pointed risk in terms of opening up, is capacity to enforce actual scenarios of contravention. I mean, the hope is that people would willingly comply, but...
Right. Jennifer? No? Okay. Anybody else have anything? Any thoughts on the dates and what is proposed to be allowed to happen on Any of those proposed dates?
I just want to comment on that it makes a lot of sense to start a little bit later to see how things are going for others and what's working and what's not. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I like the plan that you've set out for it.
Anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments, things they'd like to see changed?
One thing I would like to add, just to make sure council's aware, is that the proposed phasing and staging here for reopening deals with multiple different sites. So it deals with first the MD Park, the day use of the MD Park, and the group camping areas of the MD Park, and then it deals with a couple of specific hamlet campgrounds, followed by the Forks recreation area. So this is dealing with, this is more of a comprehensive approach to reopening and not necessarily just specific to the MD Park.
And Murray, is Enchant Park going to basically follow this, or do you know?
No, we're open already.
Oh, okay.
No, just kidding. No, we will follow whatever the MD is.
I don't think.
Okay.
Got you off guard, didn't I? But I think the boat launch, like at the Forks, I think that probably should be opened up, I would say. 'Cause I've had 2 calls from fishermen from not even in our area. One guy from Moss Lee and the other guy from up by Calgary. I don't know how he ever got my number, I guess offline, but yeah, Enchant is going to follow whatever the MD does and the rules we set out. I don't want to open this weekend, the long weekend. I'd sooner it be the weekend after or June or whatever. But everybody needs to be on the same page, I think, with all our parks. So.
Yeah, I think as long as we're following the provincial guidelines and all the parks in the MD are following the same protocol, we shouldn't get too many complaints, but we've certainly probably all been approached by different people wondering why we haven't opened things up already. But I think the plan that Jason and Arlos has put forward is reasonable. Anybody have any further comments or questions?
I do have a couple.
Okay, Arlos.
I do have a couple questions, I guess, or conversation points with council. That being, does council feel comfortable with the risk as we move through the proposed staging here? That to me is an important question that you need to be asking yourselves. And then the other, I know it's a specific targeted question, but does council feel comfortable with a May 19th opening for essential services use? It's one trend that we've been noticing with regard to gaining access to recreation areas is creativity in defining and justifying your personal situation to be in that recreation area. So in other words, people will say what they need to say and do what they need to do to be considered an essential service if it were to open on that May 19th deadline. Target date, would council rather see just an opening of June 8th, or would they want to see that essential service use to be May 19th? And Jason can maybe chime in a little bit there. I know he's had lots of back and forth on that essential services piece as well.
I was just going to throw in for everyone, if we're specifically talking down here at the river bottom, allowing essential workers, whatever that definition is that as a council we come up with today. soon as we swing the gates at the top of the hill open, the rest of the park is open, right? So, do we want that to happen yet? Is what our list is asking. And if we do decide to do an essential service use, that's our highway crews that are working on the highway there at Purple Springs, or electricians, power pole people coming in and needing a place to stay for a month or something like that. This is the list that I'm talking about. But anyways, are you interested in having a difference, or you're more interested in just a June 8th opening? And once you open the gates at the top of the hill is when everybody starts to come.
If I could, I think in reality, for some of these essential services, a lot of them would rather stay in their campers than hotels and stuff. They feel that they're an awful lot safer in their own facilities and in and out of hotels. So that is the logic to a lot of them. They're feeling more security in their own. I understand the concern, certainly in the Forks, or not the Forks, and Tabor Park with opening the gates. But I think some of these smaller ones, it's a little bit different.
Anyone else have an opinion?
Well, I think it's important we do figure out a place for these work type camps. I mean, one, they've also been the bread and butter of our campgrounds. I'd rather see them there and helping offset those costs rather than find a farmer's yard and set up. And that sounds like what the alternative could be, especially if we're going to limit access. When I'm just reviewing what stage 2 is on June 8th, I do wonder if we open up MD Park, as soon as the gates are open, people are so anxious to get there. Like, I probably don't go a day downtown that someone says, when's MD Park going to open? Do we want to keep the people out of there? That's, I guess, the question I'm asking administration is, you're right. As soon as you allow essential service camping in there, you can't give them a padlock to open and close the gate. So you're going to get people with picnic baskets and bikes and everything else, because it's already busy for those who are really agile to get down there. But now if you let them in at the bottom. So I guess I need to know, do you want them out? Because then Brian's right. We can't open the MD campground.
The only thing, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Arliss, that goes back to what you were just saying. As a council, how much risk are you willing to accept?
So administration,
And,
go
we
ahead.
accept risk all the time. It really doesn't matter. As far as the risk goes, as a municipality, there's always a certain level of risk. I think as long as you're following the guidelines that are set out for best practices, truly, if you're concerned about the risk, they're probably safer in their camper than they are in a hotel and restaurants.
So the camping doesn't, from administration's perspective, you're right, Brian. The camping doesn't necessarily, Councillor Bruin, the camping doesn't necessarily pose as significant of a risk as the day use areas and the group camping area. The areas where there's the potential for significant amounts of people to be gathering in one spot. And that's really the point that administration wanted to emphasize, was that once the gates are open, there is that risk of large mass gatherings in the context of a 15 person gathering limit established by the province. That's all. And it's difficult for us to enforce that.
Could we not put a tape around like we've camper or playgrounds everywhere else have done, and then basically we've done our due diligence by restricting it?
Most definitely, we can put up those barricades. We can put up the signage, like I mentioned earlier. For sure, but people will do what they do. That's all we're
And
trying
again,
to.
it's happening anyhow. It's just happening out in the rural areas now. It's not like it's not happening.
Okay, excuse me. I guess, you know what, I think we've already discussed it, is the enforcement part of it. If you've got more essential services sort of people wanting to camp down there, then you've got camping spots. How do we enforce it? And, you know, that's the only concern I have, is the enforcement part of it. But I know people are itching to get out of their homes and into a recreation space, a park, to enjoy some time away from their living rooms.
Jason, don't we have a limited number of days they can stay at the MD Park? Or is there not?
It's 2 weeks, I believe, but there's also, I think, a clause in there that allows our essential workers to stay longer.
How many essential or workers crews do you get down at the park?
Actually, we get quite a few, believe it or not, and they're great people to have in our park because they actually don't use the park. They disappear at sun up and they come back at sundown, and they're usually too tired to create any problems. So we've never had a problem with them, and they're great people. If they're, depending on what kind of work they're involved in, usually they go home for weekends and whatnot. But yeah, they're great people to have around. Because their use of the park is very minimal.
Joe, go ahead, John.
I have a comment, I guess. Just like speeders, you're never going to catch them all. Keeping it closed because someone might break the rules, I don't know if that's realistic. As long as we're doing extra patrols down there with the CPO officers, and I don't see a problem with it. I think people have got the message. It's going to be more difficult as we move forward, though. As more and more people, the rules relax, then people might get back to their normal. But I think if we're more cognizant effort, I guess, by our own forces to do extra patrols down there, it might be a little extra work. I think it's definitely worth attempting.
Okay, any other discussion?
This is Murray. Is our own forces going to be able to look at all the be at all the campgrounds at the same time then, or what?
Kirk, can you pipe in on some of this here?
Certainly can. We've spoken to the RCMP, and I mean, obviously their primary goal is always going to be criminal code, and then sometimes, or some months, those are very busy for them. And as the summer comes up, historically, as an RCMP officer, that was always our busiest time. Peace officers are working mostly day shifts. They have switched schedules very frequently. I think they're actually on afternoons tomorrow and some evening shifts, just to kind of cope with some of the COVID-19 related incidents, including trespassing. Can CPOs be in all those MD parks? No, there's only 2 of them, 3 if you count me, and there's just too much ground to cover in between with some of the problems that we deal with. Certainly we'll do our absolute best to respond to any complaint-driven request from like a park host, and we'll do our best to maintain order there. However, on the weekends and some afternoons or evenings, that might be very difficult to do without the maximum coverage from the CPOs and I'm assuming the RCMP.
So is everybody comfortable with the plan that's been proposed by administration to open up the parks and recreation areas?
Where do we land with essential services, Mira?
I guess that would be part of the clarification we're seeking from what council would like. The way it's being proposed is May 19th in stage 1, following those requirements. If council would like something different, we can look at that as well.
Does that clarify, Brian? You want to change to it, or are you good with that?
No, I'm good with that, and I'd be willing to make the motion to accept the recommendation.
Okay, any further discussion? Brian's given us a motion. The council accept the proposed stages of opening of our municipal parks and recreation areas as outlined by administration. Does that sound good, Brian?
I would say as presented.
As presented?
Yeah.
Okay, Brian's given us a motion. All in favor, John?
In favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara? Murray?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor, so that's carried. Thank you. That gives you enough to go on?
Yeah.
Okay. Range Road 16.5, Township Road 13.1A changes.
So Craig's picture just came up, and I'll have him outline.
Craig's picture did just come up.
I'll have him outline this RFD.
Okay, Craig?
Okay, good morning. So we discussed this same project in our April 28th council meeting with the intent of putting this project to tender on April 29th. The only outstanding piece of information prior to doing it was the mix design for the soil cement stabilization. So what that is essentially the concentration or the amount of cement powder to be incorporated into the roadway to give it a good. We did receive results of that mix design, and they were significantly higher than we anticipated. So essentially, I put the cart before the horse on this one, in an attempt to put this out to public tender prior to my departure from the MD. What we're looking at now is with the mix design and a few other alternatives that we did look at, the price point is going up where it may not be the best option anymore. So where we've got is option 3 has a so option 3 is at a cost of $556,000 in total, as it's shown there. And what that is a complete change of scope to the project as it was, as an increase in quality. So what we're proposing now is upgrade preparation, granular base course, and asphalt paving. So it would become a base paved road, and it becomes more cost effective over the long term with less maintenance required to go this road versus the concentration of cement powder that would be required to come into the roadway to make it stable. As another part of, if we are to change the scope from a soil cement chip seal to a paved project, there is no competitive advantage to tendering Township Road 13.1 in this case. It does require it for maintenance, but is likely more suited, and you'll likely see better pricing if it were to be added to the project shelf ready list, as the majority of those high priorities projects in that are chip seal related. So there may be some benefit to that. So at the end of the day, the recommended option to council would be to change the scope from a cement chip seal project to a base project and remove Township Road 13.1A from the project scope, as there is no benefit to that. All in, to base pave that road, including engineering and a 10% contingency, we're looking at an estimated cost of roughly $656,000 in total. We discussed the federal gas tax application amendment going to $625,000. We talked about that on April 28th. The recommendation would be to amend the federal gas tax application to include the estimated costs for this scope of work, which is around that $656,000.
So in your opinion, it's better to go with a base pave than the soil cement? It's going to provide a better road longer term? And drop the other chip seal project, 13-1A? He's not
That's,
okay.
that's correct, Mr. Reeve. Base pave is a better product. It requires less maintenance into the future, so it's a better, more favorable investment into the infrastructure for the MD of Taber.
And the project basically just goes to the driveway or the approach into King Arthur's Resort?
That's correct. So it ties in on the north end at Township Road 13-0, which is currently a base paved road that was done in the past through Resource Road. And then it'll go just to the very south edge of the main access into King Arthur's Lakefront Resort.
Okay. And this project can be funded through the gas tax?
That's correct.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
With this change in pricing for the cement, what implications does it have as we go forward on our other projects as well? Does this become a non-viable option overall for the MD?
Did you? Okay, go ahead.
I think I gathered the majority of what you said, Councillor Minega. The gas tax is there, and we do have room within our gas tax carryovers to fully fund this project. That's correct, right, Brian Badura?
Yeah, that's correct. We have additional room in the federal gas tax, and we'll do an amendment to this project application if it's approved.
Any other questions for Craig? Anybody have any questions? Tamara?
Okay, so the one question that I had is, does the change in the material impact our overall go forward with chip seals, not just related to this project? Is it going to change how we look at future projects?
The change of material, it changes the width of the roadway. So soil cement chip seal would hold the same width that the road's built to currently, where base pave, as you go up to bring that structure in, is going to make the road a bit narrower. Where we're aiming on this one is it'll be a finished 8 to 8.3-ish meter top. Into the future, how we maintain that, ideally we do very minimal maintenance for 20 to 25 plus years. From there, you can chip seal over top of the asphalt as required, and the other option that we would have at that width would be for a mill-in inlay. All in all, if you include the cost for maintenance on our soil cement chip seal, what we put into base paved roadways, it's more effective life cycle costing to base pave in this instance than it is to go with the alternative of soil cement chip seal.
So if I might just add for clarification, Craig, as well as Councillor Mianega with regard to her particular question, I believe it was asked if this is going to, by realizing this scenario, will this change how we evaluate future base pave scenarios versus chip seal, soil cement chip seal scenarios in the future? And I think the response to that would be, it's currently being evaluated in that way, would it not be, Craig?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. That's what we've done, is evaluate the two different structures, and based on the material and the fact that it's a new build, the concentration of cement came in much higher than anticipated. which at that point we look at other alternatives, and if there's a more cost-effective solution, such as base pave, which in this case there is.
Councillor Mianega, did that help with your question?
Yes. My other question is that does it have any implications on the travelability? I don't think that's really a word. On the road, does it change our road ban scenario or future concerns?
No, so the soil cement chip seal or the base pave with the structure that we are looking at doing here, which is a City of Lethbridge spec, will still require seasonal road bans. It'll be unchanged on the usability.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Somebody prepared to make a motion one way or the other?
I can make that motion to go with the recommended option.
Okay. Jennifer has given us the motion to proceed with option 3 and amend the scope project to base and pave Range Road 16.5 south of Township Road 13.0 and advertise to public tender. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor?
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
Favor.
Merrill in favor, so that's carried. Okay, the next item is Alberta Municipal Health and Safety Association. Brian has asked for a resolution or to pass. Let me turn it to Brian.
Actually, I'm just looking on my notes. I see it has to be in by May 7th, so it might not even be allowed. But AMSA is having their AGM on Friday. What they need is a quorum of municipalities. I believe there is 5 on the board. I'm there representing RMA. But for their AGM, they need to have municipal representation. In order to get quorum, they need to get 4 declarations signed. So I was just asking if you could sign this, if needed, to vote on in the AGM of AMSA. Typically, nobody attends it. It's about a 20-minute meeting usually, more of a formality.
So in the past, has somebody represented our municipality?
In the past, it's been myself last year, and I'm assuming it was probably whoever the RMA representative was prior to that, which would have been
Randy?
Randy, yeah.
I just have a question. Is it typically for every municipality, it's just their zone director that would be representing them?
You know, that's a good question, Jennifer. Nobody's ever attended it. I've only ever been to one other AGM there. And there's never been anybody else from municipalities coming. I'm assuming it's an AGM, anybody can attend, but to my knowledge, nobody ever has.
Well, and I'm just curious why they wouldn't send out correspondence to all municipalities asking that? Or are we, like, obviously we would be a member, but
And that's my question. I'm not sure how they know if municipalities are supposed to, because I've never had any correspondence sent to us prior to being on RMA.
So I might be able to shed a little bit of light on the scenario with regard to AGM correspondence and whatnot. The MD does receive correspondence from what I can tell, AMHSA, with regard to training opportunities and features of membership and whatnot. However, the MD's Safety Partner Association is actually, I believe it's AASP. Is that the correct acronym? So they have a local office here in Tabor. So that's probably where we get lots of our, I guess, safety-based correspondence funneled through the AASP as our actual partner. I do recognize that I'm just speculating on that, but that could very well be a reason why there's no blatant invite to the special AGM, annual AGM, because we aren't actually a partner with regard to our safety program and core. It's actually through AASP for the MD of Tabor.
And the committee, mostly union members, actually. There's a City of Calgary, a City of Edmonton representative, RMA and AUMA representatives on it. But a lot of the other ones are actually union representatives.
All right. Any more comments, questions?
I wouldn't be in favor of signing this just because I don't know anything about the AGM or what's being voted on, or there's not really much information.
Any other thoughts, concerns, questions?
Does it put us in any kind of precarious position? I don't see that it does that either. It just ensures they have quorum. So that would be my only question is, how come we haven't got it before, like was already asked, and, you know, what does it tie us to?
I don't envision it would put us in any necessary precarious position. I believe Brian is attending this as an RMA director. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Brian.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, I guess my only comment or concern is this is one of those things that should come through the front door, I think, rather than the back door. If they want representatives there, it should come as a request or rather than a last minute, we need this done sort of a thing. That's just, if this organization wants people to attend, they should send out a formal invite and a request for someone to attend on their behalf.
And that was partially my fault, Merrill. I had this a couple weeks ago. I probably should have put it on. I was just reading through the agenda and noticed it wasn't on there. And like I say, I've missed the deadline of the 7th, so it may be irrelevant anyhow.
Okay, anybody want to?
I'd like to make a comment, I guess. I'd make the motion to sign this for Councillor Bruin, and if he's going to be attending for the RMA anyway, if he could bring up the fact that in the future, if they could send this to the municipality prior to the meeting, using our CAO as a contact.
Yep, that would be my request. Also, anybody want to make a motion one way or the other?
I made that motion.
To sign it for this year, is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, with the recommendation when Brian attends that he bring the fact up that they should be submitting this earlier and through the proper channels.
All right, John has made a motion. All in favor? Jennifer?
Opposed.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
Not in favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Levitt's not here. Merrill's opposed, so it's not carried. All right, we'll move on to bylaws. 10.1, King Arthur's Lakefront Resort Area Structure Plan. Okay, Kirk, we'll turn it to you.
Morning, Council. So we have an area structure plan bylaw that's been amended. Bonnie and Joanne and myself have worked pretty steady on this the last couple of weeks. King Arthur's Resort is looking to expand its operation and add some additional lots and sites. So the area structure plan amendment bylaw is allowing them to do that, and it sets into motion the process in order to create that development. So the bylaw before you, just got to take a quick look at my notes here that Bonnie sent me this morning. Is a respect to the proposal amendment to King Arthur's area structure plan and the accompanying rezone to be considered for first reading at the upcoming council meeting. It is requested that the hearing date be set for June 23rd, 2020. This allows adequate time for our circulation to review agencies and coordination of the public hearing, given the current public health orders that may affect response times from review agencies and limitations on public gatherings. So my department's basically requesting the commencement of the development process, some additional time for the council June 23rd public hearing, in order to allow us a little bit more extra time to circulate this to the review agencies and any of the affected landowners.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or concerns regarding the Lakefront Resort Area Structure Plan Amendment, what they're proposing to do at King Arthur's Lakefront Resort?
So for clarification, this is to start the conversation. Is that right? Just because there was quite a few questions that came out of SDA. So just want to make sure I understand the process. Yeah, so we give the bylaw first reading and set a public hearing date for June 23rd, and then the public, the notification goes out to adjacent landowners and everyone. Anyone and everyone is welcome at the public hearing to discuss their concerns or support of the area structure plan. Thank you for that.
Anybody else have any questions?
Is this normally when we pass this, is it two separate motions or is it just one motion with the public hearing date in the same motion?
So a bylaw would require its own distinct reading, and so the amendment is a bylaw. So that would be first reading is what is being proposed, and then you would need a second distinct motion for the establishment of the public hearing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion before we go, before we have somebody give us a motion for first reading? Anybody prepared to give us a motion for first reading on bylaw 1962?
I can give that motion.
Okay, Jennifer gives us a motion for first reading of bylaw 1962. All those in favor? John?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor?
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
Favor.
Merrill in favor. First reading is carried. Now we need a motion that will set the public hearing date for June 23rd at 10:30 a.m. and notify landowners within a half-a-mile radius. Is that a good enough radius for everybody?
Do we normally do a half mile or was it a mile?
How much does that increase the people we have to contact if we increase it to a mile?
I don't think it increases it at all. Yeah, it kind of said it didn't, half a mile or a mile didn't affect it. I think it's only one landowner in the 1 mile area.
I'll give you the motion, but I'll change it to 1 mile.
Okay, any further discussion? John's given us a motion to hold a public hearing or set a public hearing date for June 23rd at 10:30 a.m. and to notify adjacent landowners within 1 mile radius. All in favor? Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor?
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor, so that is carried. Next, on to bylaw 1963. Kirk.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Bylaw 1963 is part of our land use bylaw 1722. It's an amendment to rezone a portion of Lot 3, Block 2. It's part of the. Carlos is scrolling here. I'm reading off that. It's part of our goal is to rezone the portion from rural agricultural to private commercial recreation. That's to incorporate the land that King Arthur is looking to expand on, part of the area structure plan. In order to incorporate that land, change the designation, and allow him to convert it from rural ag to commercial recreation in order to zone those trailers and sites when they become when they actually start being filled.
So this is just reclassifying land, and that's the purpose of this one. Is that correct, Kirk?
Purpose of this bylaw is to reclassify the land or rezone the land. The land that King Arthur is looking to expand into is currently classified as rural agricultural.
Okay.
So as he extends into his area structure plan and if it's approved through development hearings and is allowed to expand into the trailers, that portion of that land will have to be rezoned to private commercial recreation in order to allow the trailer resort to continue operating.
Okay. Anybody have any questions regarding the proposed zoning of land for the purpose of enhancing or enlarging the King Arthur's Lake Resort?
I can make that motion to amend the bylaw with the rezoning of Lot 3, Block 2, Plan 2010-659, given first reading.
Okay. Jennifer's given us a motion. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill? In favor. Carried. Next, we need a motion to set a public hearing for June 23rd, be at the exact same time. They could
Actually,
at
be
the
half
same
an
time.
hour after. It'll be actually half an hour after the first public hearing, Mr. Reef.
Okay. You wanted a half an hour later, or we can just do it back to back?
We can probably do it back to back for the purposes of notification. I'm sure Joanne's probably, if she's listening in, she's going to want that actual time to be placed in the paper. So 10:30.
Kirk?
Yes, ma'am.
In Bonnie's email to me, she said we could set one time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and then since we did a mile on the other one, we should do a mile on this one, I'm assuming. So
We should.
somebody would like to make that motion?
Yeah, I can give that to you, Merrill.
Okay, Murray gives us a motion to set a public hearing for June 23rd, 2020 at 10:30 and to notify adjacent landowners within a 1 mile radius. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill? Carried. All right. Next is 10.3, property tax bylaw. Brian or Arliss?
I can definitely introduce what's being proposed here with regard to the 2020 property tax bylaw. This is in concert with the recently approved 2020 budget. This takes care of the amount of money that the municipality will generate through property tax, and Brian, you can fill in any sort of gap that needs to be filled in at this point in time, and then we can respond to council's questions.
Yes, thanks, Carlos. So the bylaw number 1964, the tax rate bylaw for 2020, what we've included in there is the rate increases, as well as a $30 minimum tax for the first year. And even with these, with regards to the rate increases, like I said, with the budget, the average residential property tax in total will likely go down, just because of lower assessments as compared to last year. So with this bylaw, what we're asking for is first and second reading, and then it'll come back to the next council meeting for third and final reading. And the schedule for sending property taxes would be somewhere towards the end of June.
Okay. Any questions or anything on the proposed bylaw 1964, which is the mill rate bylaw for the year? These are all numbers that we've discussed at our finance committee meeting. Anybody have any questions or concerns on what they see in front of them?
I can move first reading.
Okay. John gives a motion for first reading. All those in favor? Jennifer? Tamara?
In favor?
Murray?
In favor?
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor. And if we want to go through it all today, we need a motion for second reading.
I can make that motion to
Okay.
give second reading to the bylaw.
Jennifer gives a motion for second reading. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor?
Murray?
In favor?
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor. Carried. Do we want to go all the way today with third reading?
That would be at council's discretion.
Okay.
We've set it up so there's enough time to bring it back at the next meeting in May, but it's.
If we want to go to third, we'll need a unanimous consent motion.
I can give you that.
Okay. Eric gives a motion for unanimous consent. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor?
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill? Carried. Now, if we're going to do that, we need a motion for third and final reading.
I'm prepared to give that motion.
Okay. Tamara gives a motion for third and final. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor?
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill? In favor? Carried. That's taken care of. 10.4, West Highway 3 Business Park Special Tax Bylaw. Arliss?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. So this, I believe, this special tax bylaw with regard to dust mitigation has been applied to this particular area, the West Highway 3 Business Park, at least in recent history. So one thing that needs to be noted, and it was noted in the RFD here, is that to remain in alignment with the recent changes to the dust mitigation policy, they would see a increase in cost here for this dust mitigation to take place. At this point, I will pass the torch to Brian in case there's any other special tax specificities he wants to highlight and emphasize.
Thank you, Arliss. So yes, this is a bylaw we usually pass in conjunction to the mill rate bylaw to levy a special tax. It's just in accordance with the the development agreement, which essentially states road improvements in the form of dust suppression to the entire length of Township Road 9-5A, provided that the MD, at its option and election, may levy a special tax against the lots to be created out of the subdivision area on an annual basis for the purpose of providing dust suppression to a standard desired by the MD. So in the past, in accordance with the dust suppression policy, where essentially the cost to the average person was 50% subsidized or paid for by the MD. What we've done is included in this bylaw to have the special tax cover off one application at the full rate of $1.25, I believe. And then in the event, if a second application is required at the discretion of the MD of Taber, that cost would be picked up by the MD of Taber.
So, just for my benefit again, the first one is totally on them according to their agreement here, and then if there's a second one needed, it's on us. Is that?
Yes, that would be how it would work.
Okay. And that's in this agreement here?
It's on
the development agreement?
Yeah, page 3, the agreement under under the interpretation and benefits on page 3, sub-item C.
Okay, yep, I see it here finally. Yep.
And just as a point of information, once the special tax bylaw, the special tax also shows up on the tax notice. So, though the notices for these particular properties wouldn't be able to go out until this particular bylaw is finalized.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions or concerns with this dust mitigation bylaw in West Highway 3 Business Park? If not, we would need a motion for first reading.
I can give that motion for first reading.
Okay, Jennifer gives us a motion for first reading. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill? Carried. A motion for second reading.
I can give you that, Murray.
Okay, Murray gives a motion for second reading. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill is in favor. Carried. If we want to do a third reading today, we would need a motion for unanimous consent.
I can give that motion.
All right, Tamara, give us a motion for unanimous consent. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Ryan?
In favor.
Merrill, carried. In favor, carried. And third and final reading, a motion.
I can make that motion.
That's John.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill, carried. In favor, so that's carried. All right, we are down to a motion on council dates for the summer. And Brian had given us a motion earlier to have them on the second Tuesday of July and the second Tuesday of August, which is the 14th of July and the 11th of August. Anybody have any more concerns or questions, comments? Want to change it at all, discussion? We could try this year with one meeting each month and see how it goes, and then next year we would know if it was too big of a meeting. No motions to amend. We'll go with Brian's motion. All in favor? John?
I'm in favor.
Jennifer?
Opposed.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian? He's the one that made the motion.
In favor.
Favor. Merrill's in favor. Carried. So meetings will be July the 14th and August the 11th this summer. We'll see how it goes. I am down to closed session, so we'll need a motion to go into closed.
I can give you that motion.
John gives the motion. All in favor? Down the list again. Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill? In favor. Just give us a minute to end the recording.